Hey there, everybody. It's your buddy Choppadong, and this is March 1st, Monday, March 1st, 2021. We're going to dive into some hockey today. Of course, as always, my videos are brought to you by DFSArmy.com, one-stop shopping, all things daily fantasy sports. We've got great basketball content coming out in quick-hitting videos and articles. We've got NASCAR content that is absolutely on fire. We have LOL Advantage leading the esports crew that are absolutely killing it right now. And we have Four Thoughts, which is a quick-hitting video from DFS Up North about golf. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to digest over at DFSArmy.com, and I'm just going to dive into a little bit of NHL to show you a little bit about our tools, show you a little bit about how I might play DFS NHL tiers format tonight. I like using tiers as a simplified way to get into some cash games, some multipliers, whatnot, bolster that bankroll, and then use the main slates to play GPPs. So let me show you a little bit about how that goes. You can find me out on Twitter at Choppadong, of course. I've always been out there, and I love talking back and forth with people. In fact, you can participate in today's poll, which is talking a little bit more baseball, and then we can go from there and see where everything goes. Maybe you want to be a VIP at one sport, like NASCAR or esports. Maybe you want to join everything and you want to just open up the world to all the daily fantasy sports play. You can find our pricing options down here in the comments section. Of course, while you're down there, click the like, click the subscribe, and you do you. Whatever it is, any budget, any skill level, we can help you. That's what we do. Plain and simple. Let's dive in today to, first of all, the game scores. I'm not going to talk a lot about these, but I'll show you how I find them here in just a second, because when you access the research station as a VIP, you can do this yourself. I'm very much a teach a man to fish kind of guy. I would rather not have somebody completely reliant on me, because sometimes my busy life gets in the way, and of course things come and go, and I can't be as consistent as I want to be. But in a day like today, you can combine these scores. You can find the offensive ranks over the past, say, 10 games or so, and then you can use the scores by adding the goals for to the opponent's goals against. Calgary's goals for plus Florida's goals against would give you Calgary's game score of 61, and I'll show you how we do that in a second. But until then, it really quickly shows you in this little conditionally formatted spreadsheet which games we might want to avoid, which games we might want to target. Like Winnipeg should be a target tonight. Ottawa, maybe this game here goes over with a couple of mediocre scores. Maybe we target Colorado. But I'm not going to be probably playing Vancouver. Can they score 6 goals tonight? Of course, it's hockey. Anything can happen. But if we ran this slate 100 times, our big goal scoring games should be Winnipeg, maybe Ottawa, Florida, Carolina, Colorado. Even the Toronto-Edmonton game is a little bit lackluster tonight. Maybe you target a St. Louis and take a little contrarian approach. Anaheim doesn't usually allow a lot of goals, but St. Louis hasn't played them for a while. St. Louis is hurting on the injury front. They're really trying to throw a bunch of pucks at the net right now, maybe a few deflections. Maybe they get 4 or 5 goals and they become one of the key stacks of the night. These things all happen wide open. But this game score idea gives you at least some ideas to start your research. Dive into those teams and find the production, which is what I would do if I was playing a full slate. And of course, correlation is king in hockey. You want to stack your butt off, and you want to make sure that every time a goal is scored, you have access to the assists that come with it to really jump up that leaderboard. Again, we can show you all of that inside the DFS Army VIP program. But the next thing that I do once I get a rough idea of where I'm going is I might dive over into the research station. Like I said, I'll show you how to calculate this. In the last 10 games, offensive rank 4, offensive rank 4, that's where we get the 4s over here, okay? But in terms of goals for and goals against, last 10 games, 3.3 added to goals against of 2.8 gives us a 61. 3.3 for Florida added to 2.9 of Carolina gives us a 62, 61, 62. Now, I dropped the decimal point. It's technically 6.1 and 6.2, but I dropped the decimal point. It makes it easier for me just to not have to type the period all the time. Yeah. Okay? Point is, now you can see where these scores come from. You can come down here. You can scroll all the last 10 games, the last 5 games, look at which lines are doing the producing for which teams. Mediocre results here in the last 10 games for Carolina's top line, but great results, especially high shot floors for the Florida top line. Maybe that becomes something that you incorporate into your research. You come down here a little bit more. You can see how the power play is doing over the season in the last 10 games. Power play 2, same thing. You can see maybe you should be focusing on Niederreiter tonight as a one-off. because the rest of the power play too isn't doing so great. Maybe that allows you to jump in here and put some Trocheck in there who's been doing a little, whatever. These are ways that you can start formulating ideas and game plans that can help correlate your lineups and then, of course, set you apart from everybody else playing these hockey tournaments. But when we're talking about tiers, I'm going to jump into the skaters tab here. We've got stack finders and everything else in this tool. It's a phenomenal tool. But I'm going to focus on the skaters tab. And it's already sorted by DraftKings value. See the little arrow pointing down here? I'm going to click on just tier 1. And I just want to compare who's on tier 1 today. This gives me an idea also of what cash game viable players might be on that main slate, on that larger slate, and in those bigger games, because this is generally who's going to wind up as your tiers options as well. So if I look over here, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Mitchell Marner, Mark Scheifele. All right, how do I decipher between the two? One thing I can do is I can look here at the DraftKings options, their point projection, and say, well, this is a highly projected guy in Connor McDavid, whereas the other guys are lagging a little bit, so they probably become more GPP options. Connor McDavid's probably the cash option. And my favorite GPP pivot off of McDavid is always Leon Draisaitl, because most people that get McDavid jump out of that game. They don't do a lot of Draisaitl combinations. Anyway, you can scroll over here and see implied scoring chances, percentage of teams scoring, etc. See who dominates their offenses. You can look at season-long stats. You can look at the last 10 games. This is what I tend to do. I want to see high shot on goal, and block shot floors. This is generally who's going to at least back me up with some activity. And running away is Connor McDavid. Okay, come over here. Even over the last 5 games, he's a little bit ahead of everybody else, although now you can catch some Draisaitl and some Marner. Again, these are more GPP pivots. Probably the floor is going to lie with Draisaitl or with McDavid. 26 fantasy points over his last 10 games on FanDuel, 30 on the last 5 games. Very, very strong. 23, still way above in the last 5 games his counterparts here. One more thing. So you might be leaning McDavid. You probably should be for cash. But as I scroll over here, I want to go over to DraftKings since they do the tiers format and look at the consistency ratings. Last 20 games, across the board with the darker green, he's probably the more consistent upside guy. Come over here, we're looking at 50 to 75%. He's going to get you at least 10 to 15 points over the last 10 games. And then it drops off a little bit, but he's been hot recently. I'm looking to see, generally speaking, where the darker greens are across the board. McDavid is clearly the leader of the pack here. I don't really need to look too much further in a cash game. I take McDavid, I move on. I go over to tier 2, and the options will start opening up a little bit. I do the same method. Pacioretty has the higher projection. Ehlers, Barkov, and Nugent-Hopkins. Interesting. In tournaments, you want to correlate Nugent-Hopkins with McDavid or Draisaitl. You can. You'll probably find Darnell Nurse and Barry down in there too. Certainly something that you can do. Ehlers, if you're focused on Winnipeg, they were in a good game score matchup tonight. Barkov might be in a shootout tonight. We didn't see a lot of Pacioretty mentioned with Vegas. But I scroll over here again, looking at the last 10 games, 51 shots on goal, 42 for Barkov. He might be second in line. 22, 26, maybe a recency situation. Barkov is one of the tops that you'd look for there. Average points, they're all about equal. Average points, well, Pacioretty's not producing over his last 5 games. That brings Barkov back into the mix. Scroll over here and look at these consistency ratings again for DraftKings. And now I'm looking at Barkov across the board. Pacioretty a little bit up top, but Barkov's still holding that consistency, especially over the last 4 games. I might opt for a Barkov. I might correlate with a Nugent-Hopkins. But for a cash game, if I'm looking purely for who's going to consistently get me those 10 to 15 to 20 points, it's probably Barkov. It's not a ton. 4 out of 10 times. That means 6 out of 10 times he's not going to get there. But 4 out of 10 times he is, which is more consistent than anybody else in the tier offers. So McDavid, Barkov, maybe we come down here. We look at now McKinnon, Tkachuk, Burns, Tkachuk again. Oh, we got the brothers in the same tier. And again, McKinnon is by far and away the leading projection on the night. So let's cross-check this. Last 5 or 10 games. High shot floor out of Brady Tkachuk. Interesting situation. Over the last 5 games, highest average game. So now you got to be considering Brady Tkachuk, probably be considering a little bit of Matthew Tkachuk as well, maybe even over a little bit of Connor McDavid. But if we look at the last 5 games, maybe McDavid's starting to spike a little bit. He's coming in here in the 20 and 25 range, but that's still tied with Brady Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk might be your cash game option tonight. 80% of the time, he's getting you 10 points at least over the last 10 games. That's pretty strong numbers. 50% of the time for McKinnon getting, so maybe this becomes a tiebreaker situation for you, but 40%, 40%, you're splitting hairs, but these are probably your two lead dogs. So this is all I'm really doing for tiers. And what it's doing is it's formulating people that I should be looking towards the rest of the night, and who should I be maybe focused on for my floor with some upside, and who in those tiers games makes sense. That's going to translate into who maybe forms my core and who starts anchoring my cash games, or my one-offs in my tournaments, or maybe my line stacks in tournaments, whatever it is. As I do a little bit of research, start with a bigger picture, overall game scenario, which teams are set to maybe go off, and then go into the consistency ratings and start looking at the tiers and which players are the best among their, among their peers, if you will. And which teams am I consistently looking at? Am I consistently looking at Winnipeg? Am I consistently looking at Edmonton? Am I consistently looking, at Vegas? These would start formulating stack ideas. If they match up with, well, I liked Carolina tonight. I liked Florida tonight. I liked Winnipeg tonight. I might start matching up if those players are also consistently hitting point floors. This is going to help me build better lineups. Point blank. This is going to help you build better lineups. And the only way you can do this is to access this tool at dfsarmy.com. I'm going to leave you to go through the remaining tiers, but you can see there's another Winnipeg guy, there's a Carolina guy, there's a first Toronto. I haven't seen Austin Matthews. I don't know if I look at what's presented to me day in and day out. I haven't been able to follow news as a general sports fan for quite a while, so I don't know if Austin Matthews is hurt, in COVID protocol, whatever. I would hope I would have seen that on Twitter or something, but I haven't, so I'm going to have to go look and see why the first Toronto name I saw today relevant was John Tavares. There's Barry in Edmonton again. Lindholm, David Perron's first St. Louis name pops up. St. Louis may pop up in tiers 5, 6, and 7, and that may allow you to take up in the tiers Edmonton 1, 2, 3, and then St. Louis 4, 5, 6, or something along those lines that helps you correlate those lineups too, because I do believe correlation, even in cash games, does help you. It increases your upside. It does decrease your floor, but if you're using these consistent numbers, you're increasing your floor as well. And it provides for a very balanced approach to tiers, cash games, and multipliers. So I'd encourage you to give it a try. Also, while you're there, give DFS Army a try. Click the like, click the notifications button, and hit that link in the comments section, dfsarmy.com. I'm your buddy Chapadong. Hopefully I see you inside. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk to you, and I'd love to talk hockey with you. Peace out, homies. We'll talk to you real soon.